So if you watched the last episode of Floor Bore, you may have seen that we stripped this bad boy down, this of course being the B-Series Toyota engine out of my 1978 Land Cruiser. The main prerogative being to check bore wear and see whether or not the head was still okay. As we found, the head has two tiny cracks between the valves in cylinders 1 and 4, and the bore actually looks pretty schmick considering that the motor supposedly has 400,000 Ks on it. Still even got a little bit of cross-hatching in there, which is pretty cool. I suppose that's diesels for you. What I said I was going to do also was to get a professional's opinion on what to do with this engine, and I consulted Davo the mechanical wizard and backed up his theories with a proper engine rebuilder. And essentially what they both said was to pull the pistons out, give it a bit of a hone, and for what it's going to cost me, which will be about $400 for a new cylinder head, might as well chuck one of them on whilst I'm at it. Now, what we got to do in this episode is essentially strip this thing right back to a bare block so I can do the rest of the work. Let's get cracking. Ugh. So it's time to take the timing cover off. The way that I've gotten to this is, of course, I've had to remove the harmonic balancer. The way I got the harmonic balancer bolt out was, took the sump off, jammed up the crank with a hammer, and of course that way the crank can't spin whilst I'm trying to crack the harmonic balancer bolt. Got that bolt out, and of course I had to use a harmonic balancer removal tool, which worked like a dream. Got that off, and of course all the bolts are now out of the timing cover. Of course, when you're removing timing covers such as this, always a really good idea to make sure that every single bolt has been taken out. And I know that sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I generally double check myself, because there's no point reefing on this side of the timing cover and then have this side snap out because you've got a bolt coming in from the back or something silly like that. I don't believe there's any bolts in behind, and I'm just doing one last check, because now that I've told you, and if I crack this timing cover, then I'll make myself look pretty silly, won't I? What a schmick boy. Look at that. Clean socks. Need socks. Get out of my high-tech engine building facility, bro. This is super high-tech. You need to...
I'm very impressed with the
this Mum's hairdryer.
yeah.
It's part of my high-tech engineering facility, man. We only work down to millionths of an inch. What I'm doing here, you probably won't find this in any repair manuals, but I'm using my mum's hairdryer to try and get some heat into this engine block. One, to remove any moisture left from when I was washing it, and two, just to get the paint to dry. It is engine enamel, so it shouldn't bloom or anything silly, but generally paint likes to adhere to stuff at a particular temperature range, so I'm just going to try and get it a little bit warmer than the ambient temperature because it's coming into winter, or whatever comes after summer, and it's getting a bit cold, so we'll let it cook, give it a little bit of time, eh? Well, that pretty well concludes this episode of Full Bore. As you can see, we got this chonkin beast absolutely stripped down to a bare block, and you can see that I've painted it up. I give it a bit of a schmick boy paint up using some Duper ultra high heat paint, which looks the goodness. It's pretty well ready to put back together. I've cleaned it all out, gave it a good degrease, made sure all the water galleries are nice and uncrustified. Just waiting on some main bearings, big ends, water pump, gasket set, all the good stuff. Of course, that ring pack that we were talking about, so we could give this thing a hone and re-ring it. Definitely going to be using it because I want to keep that nostalgic old boy feel of the 40 series. Maybe down the track I might think about putting a bigger schmicker motor in it, but this will do for the time being. One thing that has caught me out though is the availability of cylinder heads. There's heaps of listings out there at my parts store, but every time I call a vendor they don't have any, so we might actually have to look into reusing that old cylinder head or see whether I can track down one that doesn't have any cracks, or do a bit more research and see whether or not they're likely to absolutely self-combust if I use an old cracked head. Hey, I'm not an engine rebuilder, so we'll soon see. Anyway, that concludes this episode. We'll catch you when we next meet in a future episode of this channel, which is Full Bore. We'll catch you next time.